Hello and welcome to the latest WynActive webcast. As always, we are just so spoiled in these webcasts for the people that we're talking to, the guests, and the conversations and the insights we're getting. And today's another day that we're going to be spoiled again. But before Alison's introduced, my partner in crime, the man himself, welcome James Robertella. How are you, James?
I'm really good, Barry, and I hope you're going well. Wonderful to join you, and continuing our Wyndham flavour today with our guest, and really keen to understand. Obviously, working for council at Wyndham City, it's been wonderful to hear about all the great stories that have come out of this current crisis. But really, keen to hear a bit more around what's happened at council, and would like to welcome Alison Kenwood, the Director of CityLife at Wyndham City. Welcome, Alison, to the WynActive webcast.
Thanks, James and Barry. Great to be here, and a great opportunity to fill you in on some of the amazing work that council have been doing, and also the work in the community as well. It's been an incredible experience over the last 8 to 10 weeks.
Alison, sorry.
So look, I just thought, Alison, you sort of stepped into the director position for CityLife only recently. So how has that transition been from starting only some months ago to this current crisis, and having to manage and assist council through the past months?
Well, it's certainly been a great way to get to know my team very quickly and the work we do in detail. So I've got to say, it's been an amazing experience working with the team and with the community throughout this. And I really feel like I'm a part of the Wyndham community now, having spent the last few months really in the detail of it. So not an ideal way to start in some ways, but I think, it's been incredibly positive in the experience I've had throughout this last, dealing with the pandemic. So, sort of baptism by fire. But again, the community, I have to say, have been phenomenal throughout this, and incredibly responsive and supportive of the work that council do.
Before we get into the response of council to the COVID crisis, Alison, CityLife is a mammoth portfolio, and I'm interested to learn, but tell us the breadth and width that it encompasses, because it is a lot.
Well, I think it's called CityLife because I'd like to think most of the services that sit in CityLife contribute to the life that our community experience in Wyndham. So we look after everything from our libraries to our kindergartens to our maternal and child health services, immunisation services, youth services. We have a very strong focus on policy and planning. We have our sport and recreation team, which deal a lot with our sporting clubs and support our sporting clubs. We have the wonderful Western Leisure Services, which have Eagle Stadium, Aquapulse, and our outdoor swimming pool. I'm sure I've forgotten some in there. Our aged and disability service, our delivered meals. I mean, it's really from birth to older years. So any of the services that council provide that touch our community in a human services way sit within CityLife. So it is an incredibly broad and complex part of the council services.
As you touch on, Alison, a lot of the services and programs and the departments that sit in CityLife are very community facing. So naturally, they've been greatly impacted, I suppose, across the last few months. How has CityLife been impacted, and how is it sort of coming out as these restrictions begin to ease?
I think it's been an incredibly challenging time on a number of fronts. I think we didn't know a great deal about the virus in the beginning, and so we had to respond very, very quickly without a lot of information at the time. And obviously we were really caring for the community and making sure we could keep our community safe, but also our staff. And the interesting thing about the services in CityLife is quite a number of them have continued throughout this. So we've had to modify quite a number of those services, but services like our aged and disability team have continued throughout. and they have modified their practice, but, they've been in very close contact with people throughout this, our maternal and child health services, our youth counselling services, our immunisation teams have all worked throughout. So I think, there was a lot of focus on making sure we modified the way we delivered our service to make sure that we kept everybody safe, and that we had to do very, very quickly while communicating to the community around what was happening through council. And, it's a very complex, we were a bit more familiar with COVID-19, but if you think back a few months, we didn't know a great deal. So it was an incredible learning curve for all of us. And I think one of the challenges was really around the availability of information that was in other languages. So obviously our community in Wyndham is very diverse. And so people really looked to council for information, particularly in those early days when there wasn't a lot around. And so it was a really important role that council played in, continuing to deliver services in a safe way, inform the community, and then also close some of our services, which was extremely difficult. And I'm sure you can appreciate, our staff are incredibly committed to the community they serve, and our community love our services. They love going to the gym, they love going to the pool, they love our libraries, they love our community centres. And I think, it was very, very hard for us to close those services when we knew what an impact it was going to have on community. And when the community need more support and more help through these sorts of situations, the last thing council really want to do is close services. But of course, you do that to keep everyone safe, and we were directed by government to do that. So, but, as you say, the good news is now with the lifting of restrictions, we're looking at reopening our services now, which is a really exciting time about reopening our libraries, our youth centres, our community centres, being able to do more face-to-face appointments in our maternal child health areas. And, the teams are really excited to be able to go out there and do face-to-face work again. But I guess the other point there is that not all of the community will want to go back into shared spaces, community spaces. So it'll be really important that council also look at our virtual services, which we've really expanded over this time, and we've seen amazing take-up of our e-library service. We've got an e-book club, which is a virtual book club. We've got virtual language classes going. We've got, the WynActive, being able to do you find your 30 together. There's been a range of modifications and services that we've now made available in a different way, which, we'll keep running, because not everyone will want to come out, and not everyone will be able to necessarily come out to enjoy these services again the way they were delivered before. So that's going to be a big focus for us, is sort of keeping the two streams going, which will be face-to-face activity and interactions, but also a virtual ability as well.
Alison, during this time, people respond really well in a crisis. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit and ask you your favourite story that you've heard of people responding. But because James and I, we've spoken to Anthony and Jamie from Youth Services. We've spoken to the ladies from Age and Disability. We've spoken to Cam from Sport and Rec. We've spoken to a number of people, and we're hearing amazing stories all the time. So what's your favourite story that you've heard of? It's just something you go, wow, to.
Well, I think early on what we saw was, if I talk about the community first off, people offering food service from their garage, providing food to people that needed it immediately. Before the food banks really could respond, they really provided support for their own communities, and they were opening up their garages and providing food boxes for families to be able to prepare their own meals at home, just supporting them through difficult time. I think that's the most amazing, out of their own money, out of their own initiative, really supporting, all by word of mouth. And I think we've seen huge response from the community to just keep, responding to their local areas, supporting their neighbours, helping their neighbours with things. We've been astounded by the amount of good stories we've heard about neighbours helping people that they may not otherwise have met, whether they're older people, people who may have had to be in isolation for whatever reason, or people that just can't normally get out. They've gone to the shops and done their shopping for them, brought them things, cared for them in a way that perhaps normally you may not be able to do in a neighbourhood. So it's been so positive, the stories that we've heard from the community, and the amount of people that have volunteered to support the food banks and the other services, and the interest in people to donate and to give where they can has been fantastic. And I think some of the great stories about our staff too, there's been a really great excitement from staff to help by being redeployed into other areas. So, whether that's helping our immunisation teams by taking temperatures and helping run those a little differently to how they normally do, through to some of our library staff becoming online support for families who have been given computers for the first time and didn't know how to use them, so that they can ring the library staff and they can help them do that. Or our library staff also looking after our protective equipment that they've been able to provide to our staff that are out in community-facing roles. So many great stories, Barry. Hard to find one that I love, but I think we've really seen the best of the community through this. And I'd have to say, and more broadly, not just the CityLife team, but across council, a really real willingness to do what people can, to do jobs that perhaps they've never done before in their lives, but to use different skills and to help wherever we've asked. We've always had people putting up their hands to do different things. So it's been amazing to watch across council.
Barry, I think it just says wonders about the community, and in the face of a crisis, there's people that step up and want to come together and help each other. And I think that's an amazing thing of being part of the Wyndham City community. And coming back to you, Alison, and obviously you oversee a large number of staff and departments. How have you personally managed yourself during this time? Obviously having to work from home over the past few months. What has that change been like for you?
Yeah, a lot harder than I anticipated, actually. I've got to say, I have a child at home at school age, and she's incredibly noisy. So I've had to learn with noise and distraction. I also have 3 dogs that always decide to bark or run around the house at the wrong times. But so it was much harder than I thought. I thought initially it would be great and that be really productive. And I think it took probably 3 or 4 weeks to really find a rhythm that worked. And now I feel, I miss seeing people and I miss the contact. But it's a much easier environment. What you're sort of experiencing, and I think the technology side has, I'm more comfortable with that. That was a bit of a, just things like Teams and Zoom and different ways was just that initial first startup. But it did take a little while, and I do think the sort of face-to-face contact and those incidental opportunities to chat to someone, whether you're making a cup of tea or walking through a corridor, I've really missed. And also because I was quite new to Wyndham, missing the opportunity to go and meet the rest of my team in a lot of situations and see some of the amazing services that we actually we have around Wyndham was a bit of a disappointment, I guess. But I know that will be there when we return. And there has been some positives in that. As I say, I've met a lot of people virtually, and seen a lot of aspects of council, not just CityLife, which has been great. Because I have to say again, the whole of council have had to really support a lot of the work that we do in CityLife, and so the city operations teams, cleaning, preparing buildings, helping with us with layouts and changes and things, they've been incredibly helpful as well. So it's been a mixed experience, but I think, I'll be happy to be able to be back in a work environment, however that looks, whether it's, some homework and some office-based work I would enjoy in the future.
It's great, Alison. And I like how you said something to the effect of it hasn't been easy. And it's had its challenges. I'm paraphrasing, but I think for me, that's how I would describe it as well. And I thought, once again, I love working by myself, locking away and stuff like that. But it's different, isn't it? It really has been different. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have found the virtual piece quite exhausting. So again, it's sort of, I think people have all said it's been very tiring after you normally spend quite a lot of the day doing this sort of thing. It's tiring.
I agree 110%.
Yeah.
Alison, I want you to look into your crystal ball a little bit, and we talked a little bit about what it's going to look like coming out of this. But from your point of view, and we're all just crystal ball gazing, that's for sure. But how do you see us coming out of lockdown, especially in regards to Wyndham?
Yeah, I really hope that what I've seen is a real pride in Wyndham, and also people really enjoying a lot of the beautiful natural aspects that we've got in Wyndham, the river, the amazing parks we have. People are on their bikes. On the weekend there were photos around of everybody in Wyndham parks. We had drawn some circles on the ground to indicate to people perhaps, how to keep social distancing. Everyone abided by that. I really hope this has been an opportunity for people to enjoy, what we have around us. It is a phenomenal area. There is so much in there, the K Road Cliffs, all of the other magnificent things that we perhaps may not have seen. We might have walked them now, might have ridden and seen them, and perhaps we might not have done that as much if we weren't in this situation. I think people will enjoy the outdoor more, possibly. I think the local connections too, really getting to know your area, and I'm loving the rainbows in the windows and the bears in the windows when you walk around. Families really, enjoying getting out and walking with their children and seeing those sorts of things. So I think it's definitely, it hopefully people feel more connected to their local areas and their community, and I think there'll be a real appreciation for the services that perhaps we took for granted before. And I also think we've probably discovered a lot of services that we might not have accessed. So, for example, our cultural program, we had an art show, and we had over 2,000 people look at the art show. Now, normally you perhaps wouldn't see that level of people coming through the gallery. So to actually see people doing things perhaps that they may not have previously had time to do or thought about doing, maybe people have discovered new things. And I've been making jam, so that's my big discovery. with the kumquats off my tree. So I think we've all used our time slightly differently, and I think people will have discovered, some lovely aspects as well as possibly some challenges. But I think the other thing that I've heard from people with young children too is often they don't have the time with their families that they're perhaps having now. And that's that can be really nice time as well. So hopefully it strengthens some of those family connections as well.
Alison, I'm loving your enthusiasm and the positivity as we sort of come out of the COVID crisis, and something that we love doing on our Wyndham our WynActive webcast, I should say, is practicing gratitude, and trying to be positive amidst what's happening with us. So I'm keen to understand what you're grateful for today.
Yeah.
I'm really genuinely grateful for the great leadership that we've seen at Wyndham, not just in CityLife, and I think the leaders in CityLife have done phenomenally well, and the team in CityLife, but council overall has played a really critical role through this. So I'm really genuinely grateful to be part of that. I'm grateful that I have a lovely family, and that it's been a pleasure spending time with them when my daughter's quiet. And just having slightly more time at home to with less travel, and more time to walk and be in the local area too. So that's been a real positive. So I am grateful to be able to keep working throughout this as well. So we have been very lucky to have technology to connect us, but equally to have jobs to do, and to genuinely feel that you can contribute to a crisis. Feeling useful has been something that I'm grateful to have been able to do throughout this pandemic as well.
I love the point you made about leadership. I actually wholeheartedly agree that during this time, I think our leaders have stood up. We might not always agree with their decisions, but they've stood up and they've made decisions, and I think that's really important, and also shown direction for us. So yeah, great point. Thank you, Alison. James, our challenge is every day we have to be grateful about something, and at times it isn't easy because we don't want to repeat ourselves. But what are you grateful for today?
Look, I am grateful to still be working and to be making an impact, as Alison said, within the community. But I'm also grateful for the access to technology, and I know I've touched on it, I think, a couple of times, Barry, over the course of the last few weeks. But recently, council was able to implement some changes in the working space at the Civic Centre through a changing systems project, and we gained access to our devices here and what I'm communicating to you with. So I'm really grateful for the timing of that. I suppose you could never say that there's any good timing for a crisis, but that having access to that technology and being able to have a device to connect with you today and into the future has been wonderful. So very grateful for that today. What about yourself, Barry? What are you grateful for?
Hello. There we go. I'm sorry, I just phased out a bit then. But yeah, look, I'm grateful. Look, as you know, both Alison and James, that we've had the Find Your 30 challenge on, and next week we go into the third week of our Find Your 30 challenge, and we've had our ambassador Mark Williams doing a great job in promoting it, but also providing us with videos of him exercising, him finding your 30. And for me, they've been fantastic. And earlier, just yesterday, we got through another video from him, James, of him doing yoga, Alison. So you can imagine, like an AFL legend, you know, doing yoga in his study. And it'll be up next week on for the Find Your 30 participants. But I was watching and going, I've never taken to yoga, but I was watching Mark do it and I'm going, geez, I should try that. I need to have a go at it. So I'm really grateful that we've got someone who's willing to put himself out there and inspire others, because he inspired me. So inspiring others to find your 30 and trying different ways of finding your 30 and exercising and being active. So yeah, that's what I'm grateful for today, James.
Brilliant. And we look forward to the final week and the challenge of finding our 30 minutes a day of activity across 5 days. So all the best to everyone that's taking that challenge next week. And yes, thank you for sharing, both Alison and Barry, wonderful stories.
Alison, have you been finding your 30 while we're talking about it?
Absolutely, Barry, with 3 dogs and in a house when you're working from home. Yes, they get walked regularly, twice a day at least, and definitely finding our 30. We've been competing at home. We've been wearing our steppers, and we see who comes up with the most steps at the end of the week. So that's been our challenge, which has actually been incredibly fun. But with very competitive family, surprisingly. So yes, I haven't won too many weeks, put it that way. So
look, that's fantastic, and as we've spoken about a number of times, it is about doing it your own way. I love the fact that as a family getting involved and a little bit of competition doesn't hurt. It's just amazing, and yeah, I know we're enjoying it, James and I, that's for sure. Alison, thank you very much for coming along today and joining us on the WynActive webcast. Thank you, James. It's been great to chat to you again.
Thanks, Barry. Thank you, Alison, and look forward to catching up with you tomorrow.
Definitely.
Thanks. That was really fun. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, look, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us again today. I'm sure you found that talking to Alison Kenwood from Wyndham City insightful as well as informative, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and trust me, we've got a great surprise for you tomorrow. All the best. Look after yourself, and of course, keep smiling. See you tomorrow.